So you clicked on the video, and I just want to say, who is surprised? Genuinely, who on this planet is surprised in the slightest? If you've seen any of my videos, especially if you've seen my streams, like, I can watch a single 10-minute video on stream and then end up turning it into a 3-hour reaction because of just how many side tangents I go on, to the point that I basically forget about the video that I was actually watching. But yeah, I got the diagnosis back a couple days ago. I've got ADHD. So they tested me for ADHD and autism. Apparently, I didn't check enough boxes to have autism. I'm still not sure about that one. The funny thing is, with diagnosing these two, there's always been a lot of stigma around it. I mean, for example, let's say 5-10 years ago, oh, you got ADHD? Were you the annoying kid full of energy in the class? Yeah, you've got ADHD. Oh, were you the kid with no friends and you didn't really have that many social skills? Oh, it must be autism. Obviously now, thankfully, diagnoses have made huge leaps and bounds since then. To an extent, I mean, I originally wanted to get diagnosed with ADHD and autism, I think like 8 months ago. I went with this company privately, you know, paid for it. And then they said, okay, so just do a little thing for us. Fill out these about 80 to 100 different forms. Some of these forms could take 20 seconds. Some of them could take 2 hours. Now, you see the problem with trying to fill out so many forms that require your full attention when they're trying to diagnose you with not having enough attention. So yeah, I put the forms off for a while. I would do like, 5 in one day. I'd do 1 a month at some point, but eventually filled them all out, handed it back to the company. And then we had a call with the company and they basically said, yeah, you've definitely got ADHD. Now, again, this is like shocking news to no one. I mean, it's not like when they diagnosed me, I was like, oh, I get it now. It all makes sense. This is something we've all known. This is something that I have definitely thought about, but it's actually nice now to get an official diagnosis from it. Now, this isn't something that I've had, for the past couple of years. This has followed me through pretty much my entire life. I remember every single parents' evening I would have, that every teacher would say the exact same thing. He doesn't listen. He doesn't apply himself. But then on the flip side, they'd say, if this guy, I remember one teacher, he was probably going through a lot saying this to like a literal 11-year-old, but he said something along the lines of, he never listens, he never pays attention, but if he had to work a normal 9-to-5 job, he would probably put a shotgun in his mouth and blow his brains out. Again, he's a teacher in the UK. He's probably going through a lot as it is, but it's nice to now know that like that is the reason for my attention being so bad. And it's weird, like the way that it works is sometimes I can sit down, absolutely lock in and do like days worth of work in basically a couple of hours. But then on the flip side, I will kind of like, just lose motivation and not really want to do anything for the next couple of days. And then you're almost trying to play catch up because the time that you spent not working is time where you should have been working. So you're, having to do double the amount of work, which then leads to this vicious cycle of doing a lot of work, then burning out, then doing a lot of work, then burning out. And I get it as well, like the eye roll with some people clicking on this video. It's like, everyone and their mother is now being diagnosed with, either ADHD or autism. I think honestly, and I've said this before, it sounds incredibly selfish of me, but I did think for the longest time I had these symptoms, but I kind of like put it away in a drawer. I ignored it because it was like, I'll see so many people online that make having like ADHD or something else their personality trait. It's like, oh, I've got this. It's like my badge of honor. And like for them, it could be liberating. I respect that. But at the same time, I saw so many people do it. I've seen so many YouTubers, for example, come out and say that they have ADHD, almost treating it like, it's their kind of badge of honor, their superpower kind of thing. And there are some benefits to it, but I think how I don't want to say the word saturated, but I guess with how many people were talking about it, it made me think, yeah, I kind of don't want to go down that route, which doesn't really make a lot of sense saying it out loud. When I had the conference call, the person I spoke to also had ADHD, so like we could kind of relate on a lot of things. Some things, for example, where like, I think they made one point saying how when you annoy someone or you feel like you've annoyed someone, as like kind of a passing comment or something, you'll think, oh, it's not really too bad. No, it's fine. But for some people with ADHD, that comment you made or, that feeling that you've done something wrong could literally live rent-free in your head for days or even weeks. I do want to say as well, like being diagnosed with ADHD, there are an infinite amount of little boxes you can check. I don't fill all of these boxes, but it was enough to basically get me diagnosed. I am actually getting a report soon, like basically going over everything and all the finer details. I might do another video talking about that as well. I mean, one classic example, which has become a bit of a stereotype with ADHD, is that, that restlessness, that fidgeting. I do that a lot. I mean, you can even see, like if you play the video on like 2 times speed, you can probably see I'm still kind of rocking the chair. If you see me on streams, for example, I'll usually have some kind of like fidget toy or something, or, I'll be messing with something that people will think is like a vape. Now, I know a lot of you vape. All right, I get it. How is this a vape? It's a spare holder for my microphone. Notice how you can see through it, by the way. But then there are other symptoms as well, like kind of not waiting for your turn to speak, speaking out of turn. I do the complete opposite, or, you know, if I feel like I'm interjecting into someone's conversation, I will say, you know, really sorry to cut you off kind of thing, because again, it plays on that kind of like that people-pleasing aspect, I think, which is also another symptom of ADHD, even though that seems to go directly against the kind of cutting people off and not knowing when it's your turn to speak. It's all very complicated. I mean, I'll be honest here. I'm more amazed that I wasn't diagnosed with autism. Now, the professional I spoke to did mention some things about autism as well. And also Jacksepticeye did a really good video going into detail on him being diagnosed with autism. And again, there are so many cliches there as well. It's like, oh, if you're social, if you can hold a conversation, you can't be autistic. Now, one thing that they mentioned to me, which was like, this was like a light bulb moment, a eureka moment, a moment where I was like, oh my God, it all makes complete sense, is he said, a lot of people, not everyone, that suffers with ADHD has like this kind of like perfectionist syndrome where it's like an all or nothing attitude. Like, I have to do the best that I can possibly do with something, or there's no point doing it at all. Now, this sounds really ironic considering that this channel up until recently was just regurgitating daily slop that you'd forget about soon after I uploaded it. But I think that carries over more into the main channel content, you know, trying to do the kind of best videos that I can do, even if financially it would really hurt me. Like, here's a really good example, right? I'll want to use in a main channel video like a song. Like, for example, in the Darkwood video, I used Echo 2K, did a song called Fragile because I loved that song. I was like, oh, this is perfect. It has to be in the video. And then the company that Echo was signed with at the time, not anymore, unlucky, reached out and they wanted quite a lot of money. And then, you know, I've had so many people say, just use a different song. You don't have to use that song. You could get a cover of a song for like 1/10 of the cost. Just something that sounds similar. But I'm like, in my brain, it's like, no, it has to be this song, or like the entire video is basically pointless. Well, not pointless, but more like a huge chunk of what I wanted to put into it personally has been taken away from it. I think this is the problem because a lot of YouTubers in the latter part of their life cycle, which I definitely say I'm in right now because I've been doing YouTube for basically nearly 10 years, which is terrifying to say. A lot of people tend to turn it into more of a business, right? They want to get the views, they want to get the profit. And I mean, I do as well. Of course I do. But then, you know, I'll make pretty stupid financial decisions for things that most people won't even appreciate or even notice. But the reason why I do that is because I do it for me, which sounds, again, kind of selfish. But that means that when that video's up there and it's out, it's like, okay, so this little bit that I wanted, this little piece of me has then been put into the video. Now, there are a lot of symptoms of ADHD that I didn't fit into. Like, for example, eye contact. Like, when I talk to people, usually I look at them way too much, like a complete psychopath. But one thing I would say as well is my attention span is horrendous. My memory as well is also terrible. I mean, again, I said it at the start of the video. If you watch any of my streams where I've got like another video playing and I'm trying to give kind of input and stuff, obviously, you know, I'm juggling a lot of things. I'm reading chat. I'm watching people give donations, way too much money. You know, it's juggling a lot of things. But at the same time, it can also be to the point that I'll focus on one of them and then kind of lose track on everything else as well. But it's funny how ADHD works. Like, if you get some kind of, you know, I guess a fixation or something you're very interested in, you develop like this giga brain, almost like it literally is a superpower. This is why in my videos throughout the years, I've done like so many, you know, video game references to TV shows. And some of these are so niche. And what's been really nice as well is like, you know, like for example, I've done so many Breaking Bad bits in my videos. I've then had people reach out to me and say, because of the bits that you do, I actually ended up watching Breaking Bad and it's a really good show. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to stay away from the ADHD diagnosis for so long is because I personally thought it was being way too overdiagnosed, right? There's no way that like half, maybe even more of all the people you see online suffer with some kind of ADHD. Like, that can't be right. People are just scrolling on their phones too much. And like, personally, I do believe definitely that the society that we live in right now is overstimulated. And I think because of that, more and more people are going to develop attention deficit disorder or ADHD, mostly because of the fact that unfortunately, these huge companies now, they want you so badly to stay on their app, to stay on their platform, to consume all their content. I've seen loads of people do studies on this. You know, for example, you'd read a book that would take, I don't know, 1 to 2 days if it was a big book. And then you'd watch a film. A film could take 2 to 3 hours. You'd watch a YouTube video. That's 10 to 20 minutes. You watch a YouTube short. That's 10 seconds. And it just gets shorter and shorter and shorter. I mean, I was talking to Seth Everman the other day because obviously I'm in Play Sweden at the minute. And one thing that really interested me about him is I looked at his phone and his phone was completely black and white, like grayscale. And I said, like, did you like drop your phone? What's wrong with it? And he basically told me, no, I just don't want to use my phone unless like it's a necessity. And the guy had no social media apps on his phone, no Twitter, no Instagram, no Discord, nothing. And then I said to him at one point, you know what's funny about TikTok? You could scroll it for 2 hours straight, lying in your bed, just rotting. After you're done scrolling, after you close it, and I mean, you close it, you don't close it and then muscle memory just reopen it again instantly. A lot of people do that for some reason. I'm very guilty of that. Could you actually recall a single thing that you watched out of any of those TikToks? Could you recall anything? And he said no. And I was like, same, literally. I definitely think ADHD has been underdiagnosed and now it's being overdiagnosed almost as a way to kind of catch up and stuff. But I also do definitely think that these huge social media companies are partly to blame because they are vying for your attention so much. They're basically squeezing every last drop of dopamine out of your head that they possibly can. Now, again, I don't want to get it twisted. I don't want people to think, you know, it's like, oh, you don't have ADHD. Just turn off your phone before you go to bed. You know, when I had the meeting to talk about my symptoms and stuff, there were so many things that were similar, especially, like I said, that perfectionist attitude. It's like, I have to do the best thing I can possibly be, or there's no point. Like, why did I even try? Like, I'm not joking. I'll go on a run or something, right? And if I did like a 5K run or a 10K run, and if I ended a 5K run on like 4.99 kilometers, I would then think to myself, no, that sucks. That's not enough. Even though, like, to reach the 5 kilometers, I would basically have to walk 3 yards. But I do want to go back onto that burnout thing. I think it's very interesting because a lot of content creators do definitely experience burnout. And I think ADHD does play into that. I mean, you can have burnout and not have ADHD. It's a very normal thing, by the way. I'm not saying you have to be in this special neurodivergent club just to be able to experience burnout. But I think with ADHD, it's massively exacerbated. You could be an absolute Trojan and do insane amounts of work. And then for the next like 3 days or like the next week, you kind of don't want to do anything. I mean, like look at my streaming schedule, for example. Sometimes I'll stream like 1 week, 2 weeks straight. And then after that, I'm kind of like, I don't really feel like it. I'm just gonna play Team Fortress 2 instead. I'm good. It is really funny as well, though, how some people with ADHD, again, not everyone, they will, and I'm very guilty of this, they will put off doing something until like the last possible millisecond. It like I really wish there was like a switch in my brain that I could just turn to stop doing that. This could be, you know, replying to work emails, replying to family. It's insane how I'll always look at a message, like, you know, someone will send me a video to review or something, and then I'll be like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, sure. And then I just don't do it. And then the guilt sets in of like you forgetting to do it. Well, not initially because you totally forget. But then when you remember, like at a, you know, it could be at 3 a.m. when I'm trying to sleep. And then my brain will say, oh, you forgot to do that thing. And it's like, oh, okay. And then, you know, you go into work mode. And then that starts to also impact your sleep as well. Going back to the parents' evening thing I said with the guy saying I was going to blow my brains out with a shotgun. Again, very normal sentence to say to a child. But even though that was like nearly 20 years ago, I completely agree with him. Like, genuinely, I think the way that my brain works, YouTube is a perfect fit for me. Genuinely, like, I probably could not hold down a 9 to 5. This is why when I get people that come into my chat or comment on a video, you know, saying that, oh, my job sucks. Like, I work at, you know, Burger King or I work in retail. And it's like, you can say your job sucks, but I don't think you understand as well how much more respected your job also should be compared to being a YouTuber, because my brain is so like kind of scattered and all over the place that I genuinely do not think I could hold down an actual real job. One thing that I find really strange as well, it's like almost as I'm getting older, I feel that my ADHD is definitely getting worse. When I was a child, I definitely had problems, you know, kind of focusing, staying motivated, having attention to certain topics at school and stuff. But I feel like as an adult, because you've basically had the shackles removed and you've got free reign, it's almost like it can be a bit too, like, you get too much freedom of choice to the point that you kind of don't want to do anything. You want to do everything, but then to do everything would be basically impossible, so you end up doing nothing. Now, I know the video overall has been pretty negative, but I do think there are some benefits of ADHD as well. Like, for example, you know, if you've got ADHD, some people, especially me, you pick up these kind of like fixations on topics, right? Like, you want to dive into a game, you want to jump into it. And, you know, this has led me to making some of the best videos, like the Cruelty Squad video, the Utopia video, the Cry of Fear video, the Far Cry video, because like that's all I could think about. It's all that was in my brain. And I've said this time and time again, when I complete a game, the fixation has ended. Like, I never want to touch that game ever again. I mean, I'm going through Far Cry 3 at the minute to get all the achievements, and even then, it's a bit of a slog because I'm not really like the fixation on that topic in particular has kind of just ended. We will be safe again. Okay. Where'd they go? I mean, and this has happened loads of times. I was going to do so many main channel videos. I was scripting it, and then halfway through, I thought to myself, I've lost interest in this. I don't really care anymore. And why is it so hard? Why did I go from writing 20 pages a day to like 2 a week? This sucks. And I've had to scrap so many videos because of that, because my brain has just moved on to something else. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Just lock in, bro. Stop being such a coward. Don't wait for your fixation to do the work for you. And yeah, no, I agree. But genuinely for me, once I lose that kind of spark with something, it's like, yeah, I just don't really want to do this anymore. And nothing seems to like alleviate that. You can't take a break from it, because if you take a break from it, you're then giving your brain more time to move away from what you started and then probably start on something else instead. Now, the next step for me is I was actually sharing with friends that I, am having a meeting to get diagnosed with ADHD. And a lot of them just said like, I don't think they're going to say that you've got ADHD. I think they're just going to say you're really, really annoying. But what's the next step here? I'm not really sure. The person I talked to did not want to start me on any kind of medication, not to jump on meds. And I'll be honest, I have never taken meds for anything in my life. The most I've taken is like a multivitamin and a fish oil tablet. So yeah, to take something that changes the chemistry of your brain, that sounds pretty intimidating. And also, I've talked to some people that have ADHD. They've had mixed experiences. Some of them have said that, going on meds is the best thing that ever happened to them in their life. And all the voices in the brain go quiet and they can actually focus. But then I've had other people that have said it messes up their sleep, and also it takes away their creativity. They almost become like a little bit of a zombie, because like all those voices and thoughts and ideas that are shooting out your brain, if you can pluck like 2 or 3 of them, they actually might be beneficial. But obviously this is something I'm going to have to discover myself over the coming weeks. But again, like I know some people immediately jump onto medication. I'm like not too keen on doing that, honestly. I also think as well, I do have a bit of anxiety about like taking any kind of medication, because even if it's the best thing in the world, there has to be side effects, right? Side effects that are probably very well studied. And also as well, I feel like if you take any kind of medication, you might actually build up a tolerance to it eventually at some point. So you might have to up the dose more and more. I don't know. I need to do more research into this, but that's just kind of where I'm at right now. Again, anyone watching this video that takes meds and stuff and it helps you, more power to you. I'm not saying do not take medication, by the way. It's just, this is something relatively new to me, and I'm still trying to look at all the research and all the data without jumping into starting something straight away. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit. I mean, even this video alone, I've gone on like so many tangents that I'll probably have to cut out the video and stuff that won't make it in. No one was surprised. No one was surprised by this information at all. I'm not surprised. It's not like it was a eureka moment. Definitely that completionist all or nothing, that hit me the hardest, I think, as well, because it was like, yeah, I have that attitude to work a lot where it's like, I have to do the best thing humanly possible, or there is just no point even trying. And that can be good. That can put out some great content, but it can also be very, very toxic, especially when you've got a team of people that need to be paid and stuff like that, and you're putting off projects to try and make it, as good as possible. But I think this is going to be pretty eye-opening for me. The one thing I'm not going to do is just look up ADHD symptoms on Google. And also, to anyone that's wondering, I know there hasn't been any uploads on here for basically a month at this point. I was kind of setting up in Sweden, but also trying to move away from the slop a little bit. The next video on PyroLive will be an Invincible retrospective, going over like, is the animation actually as good or as bad as what people say? And also on the main channel, which should be out Thursday or today, I guess, if the video goes out, we have an entire retrospective breakdown of the TF2 horror series Server Blight. I had a lot of fun with this. It's a huge return to those kind of like reviewing TV shows and films that I used to do years and years ago before I moved over to just game reviews. And we also have some merch for that as well, which you should definitely buy. Actually, the funny thing is, you can buy this merch right now. The link's in the description. Bro did an entire video talking about ADHD just to do a merch chill at the end. What a guy. What a guy.